I appeal to my fellow Canadians to unite in a national effort to save from destruction all that makes life itself worth living, and to preserve for future generations those liberties and institutions which others have bequeathed to us.
In 1941, Georgian grandparent William McCormick answered his country's call to duty by voluntarily withdrawing from university and enlisting in the Royal Canadian Armoured Corps. This is his story of service and commitment.
1941.
And how old were you at the time?
21.
21?
Yes.
Wow. I certainly wasn't doing that at 21 years old.
Nor was I.
No, well, once you got overseas, you aged quite quickly.
So can you describe your time overseas and the training?
It was a 5-week training, and it was a good course. I came off that in the best condition I've ever been in. I was on it for 3 weeks and broke my bone in my ankle. They had 50% casualties.
In training?
In training.
Goodness. Didn't you roll your ankle last weekend, Jeff?
Playing ball hockey, though.
Well, I went to the hospital. I finished all but my last day on the battle school. I broke it on the last jump.
Was there anything that could mentally prepare you for what you were about to experience?
No. No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any training that equips you for action. I mean, you're trained to use your equipment, but the psychological effect, I don't know how you can train for that.
Okay, so Grandad, on June 6, 1944, you landed in Normandy.
Yes.
Can you maybe describe to us some of the thoughts going through your mind, and then what happened in that first day that you saw action?
I was in C Squadron, which was a reserve squadron, and we came in about, I don't know, half an hour later. And I know they were still firing on the beach. I saw the first enemy fire, and it changed my mind a little about going in. But that would pass very quickly. I was more engaged with getting off the ship. As a lieutenant, I had 3 tanks in my troop.
How many other men were in the tank with you?
4. I had a gunner and a loader operator, a driver, and a spare driver, co-driver.
And Grandad, I'm curious, as you moved inland, you went into a town called Cruelly.
When I went into Cruelly, the infantry were following me, and the town appeared deserted. But the Germans were there, and they wheeled out a 28-20 squeegee gun, which they fired, but so I laced the town with machine gun fire and put a shell into the church steeple. I thought there might be a sniper up there. English regiment came in from the other side of the town, and the Germans got out. They disappeared. The town erupted. Just, they'd all been sitting in their basements or hiding.
And then in this picture here, you can see where you're standing in front. The bullet holes you put in the church 65 years later are still there.
Yes, yes. They repaired the church steeple. They weren't very happy about that.
Grandad, can you talk about the events that took place the last day that you saw combat?
When we arrived on the scene, I saw was burning tanks, and we were given the order to advance, and we just froze. Our squadron commander, when he gave the order to advance, nobody responded. And he asked for volunteers. I gave the order to advance, and we moved in. Then my tank on my right was hit. Tank on my left was hit, and my tank was hit down low. And it killed my gunner and killed my loader operator, and both my legs were hit, and it wounded my co-driver. So I got out of the tank somehow. I remember I couldn't walk, but I got out on nerve, I guess, and told the crew from my other tank had gathered around. I said, just get back, just leave me. And they said, they were going to take me. I said, that's an order. Well, they didn't pay any attention to that. So they got one on either side of me and started to drag me through the wheat field. At some point, the Germans brought mortar fire in on us. And I don't know how many they fired, whether it was 5 or 10, but it was all around us. I thought, this is the end. And it killed one of my boys from my other tank, Mugford. He was crawling off to our left. He was killed. And when that subsided, we continued on. I was just Ted Cooper and myself. He was pulling me, the rest of me, along. And a Jeep came up, and they pulled me out and put me on that and took me back to Brettville. And the next thing I remember was a strobe light. I knew I was on an operating table. And sometime through the day I lost consciousness. I don't know when. I just remember being carried through from one tent to the other, and the whole sky was red. I just thought it was sunset. I don't think it was. I had gangrene. And I woke up next morning, and there was an English orderly standing by I was still in a stretcher. And I said, Jesus, my leg's burning. What did they do? And he said, they cut it off. So
that's how they broke it to you?
And then he disappeared. That was his job. To tell me I'd lost my leg.
Now, you'd always told me one story about there was a boy that was hoisted up onto your tank.
Rennie, he was the little boy that climbed out of my tank and gave me a bottle of wine. But when over on the 50th anniversary, he had arranged for a special service, and they dedicated a square to me and gave credit for liberating their town on D-Day.
Granddad, on behalf of my entire generation, I'd like to thank you and the men and women who have served our great country.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Thank you, Granddad.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you very much.